This is a horrifying haunted house story that comes from a viewer called Toby. Hi, my name is Toby, and this happened to me recently. I am a crime reporter for a popular newspaper here in England, and one of my biggest rivals is a guy called Paul who works for a rival newspaper. He was actually a friend of mine at university. We fell out because he stabbed me in the back over a story and then ran it in his paper. I had to go through months of therapy for what happened. He even threatened me and told me that he'd do it again if we ever become friends again. Anyway, this is all in the past now, and I've moved on. One day I got a phone call from a woman claiming her name was Lisa, and she said that her sister went missing about 4 years ago. And they think that she might have been murdered, and her body dumped into an old abandoned house near where I live. I knew exactly which house she was talking about. It's number 37. An old derelict building that's been empty for years. I never go anywhere near that place because locals say it's haunted. The front door has been ripped off its hinges and the roof caved in years ago. And as far as I know, nobody's ever lived there. The last resident, a man named Arthur Starling, died in 1992. His wife left him after he came home drunk and started beating her. Then one day he just disappeared. The police found his car outside the house and his body was never recovered. They assumed that he'd met with foul play, but nobody knows for sure. So I went to visit Lisa, and she told me how her sister had gone to see a psychic in town. And the psychic told her that her sister's body was inside. No, 37. She refused to let the police search the house because she didn't want them to find her body. So she asked me if I would go into the house and look around for her. She offered me £10,000 if I could find anything. So of course I agreed. I drove to the house with Lisa and two of her friends. As we approached, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Something told me to turn around and leave, but I couldn't. Maybe it was because of the money. So we parked up and I walked towards the house. There was a terrible stench in the air, like rotting flesh and sewage. When I looked through a broken window, I could see that the inside of the house was completely empty. I pushed the window open and stepped inside. The floorboards creaked under my weight and I could feel eyes boring into me from the darkness. I felt so scared. I continued further into the house and realized that there was someone else inside. I could hear footsteps above me. I called out and asked if anyone was there, but no one replied. As I walked through the living room, something caught my eye. It was a brown leather diary lying on a table. I picked it up and opened it. The first message read, "Whoever finds this diary, stay away from this house. It's cursed." Below that message was another. "The spirits here are evil, and I fear for your safety." The diary belonged to the last person who lived here, Arthur Starling. It wasn't just a diary. It was a record of everything that had happened in the house since it was built in 1894. I could feel the terror radiating from the pages as I read them. Arthur wrote about things moving on their own, voices in the night, and shaking curtains. Then weird things started happening to him. First, his wife started having an affair. Then he began to lose his job because he kept falling asleep at work. Soon after that, he became convinced the house was haunted. He wrote that he could feel cold spots, hear chains dragging metal moans, and smell burning flesh. Then one day he wrote, "Today I saw her. She appeared in the corner of my eye. I turned around, but she was gone. I know she's watching me, waiting for me to die." After that entry, there was a long gap in the diary until one day it simply read, "Help me." That was the last entry. I quickly closed the diary and put it down. Just then, I heard a voice behind me. "You shouldn't be here. This house isn't safe. Leave while you can." I spun around, but there was no one there. I thought maybe I was going mad, so I left the house and decided to go home. On the way, I stopped at a shop to get some water. When I turned around, I saw that no 37 had vanished. The road was empty. There were no houses, nothing. But when I told the shopkeeper what I'd seen, he told me that there had been a house there for as long as he could remember. He said that it looked like it had been abandoned for years, but he never heard of anyone dying there. I got home, but I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned in bed thinking about the house. Then I remembered the diary. I had to go back. I drove back to the house, but it was gone. I drove around the neighborhood looking for it, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I even went back to the shop to ask the owner if he'd moved house or something, but he hadn't. I spent the next few weeks searching for the house, but it was like it never existed. Then one night I was awoken by a noise downstairs. I got out of bed and crept towards the stairs. I could hear footsteps and whispers. The diary must have worked some kind of curse on me. I was hearing the ghosts of No 37 in my own home. I screamed and ran away. Then one night I was awoken by a voice. Your place is empty. Come sit. I opened my eyes and saw a girl standing over me. She was pale and emaciated and had long flowing hair. She looked at me for a moment and then she vanished. Then I heard a crash from downstairs. I didn't want to go down there, but I knew I had to. I slowly descended the staircase, and at the bottom I saw that the front door had materialized out of thin air. It was the door from No 37. I wanted to run away, but my feet were rooted to the spot. As I stood there, frozen in fear, the ghost of the girl appeared in the doorway. Come, she whispered. Her voice sounded like nails on a chalkboard. I'll show you around. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there as she glided past me and disappeared into the darkness. I followed her and found myself walking towards the house. When we entered, I saw that everything had changed. It was no longer dilapidated. It was a beautiful house, just as it had been in the 1950s. The furniture was all there, just as Arthur Starling had described in his diary. We walked into the living room and the girl sat down on the sofa. Join me, she beckoned. But as I approached, I noticed that she was dissolving into dust. I reached out to try and touch her, but my hand went straight through her. The last thing I remember is her whispering, "Don't forget me." Then I blacked out. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor outside. No 37. The house had vanished again. I stood up and dusted myself off and headed home. I haven't been back since, but I know that I'll have to go back someday.